On my brother's 28th birthday, our parents decided it shouldn't just be a celebration, it should be a demand. The house was already loud when I arrived. Music thumped through the walls, voices overlapped in forced laughter, and the dining table sagged under food no one had cooked themselves. It looked like a normal family gathering. That was the trick. Normal on the surface, rotten underneath. My brother stood at the center of it all, glass raised, soaking in attention like he'd earned it. He hadn't. He never had. But birthdays in our family worked differently. They were reminders of hierarchy. And I was always at the bottom. I noticed it immediately, the way my parents kept glancing at me. Not smiling, measuring, waiting. After cake, my mother clapped her hands once, sharp and commanding. The room quieted faster than it ever did for me. We should talk, she said, already walking toward the study. That was how it always started. No request, no choice. Inside the study, my father closed the door behind us. The noise from the party dulled, like the world had been muted so I could hear what they really thought. My brother leaned against the desk, arms crossed, confident. Too confident. You know how important today is, my mother began. I nodded, not because I agreed, because arguing early only made things worse. My father slid a folder across the desk. Thick, heavy, expensive paper. We've decided, he said, that it's time you contribute properly to the family. There it was. I opened the folder slowly. Inside were glossy photos, flight plans, contracts, and a projected cost that made my stomach tighten. A private jet, not leased, not shared, purchased. For him? I asked, already knowing the answer. My brother smiled, not grateful, entitled. It's an investment, my mother said quickly. Networking, image, people expect a certain level of success. I looked up, and you expect me to pay for it. My father didn't blink. From your trust. I laughed once, a short, disbelieving sound, then stopped when I saw none of them were joking. That trust isn't for this, I said. You know that. My brother stepped forward. You don't even need it. You're fine. Always have been. Fine. That word, the way they used it meant disposable. I closed the folder and slid it back across the desk. No, I said. The silence that followed was immediate and cold. My mother's face hardened. Don't embarrass us. I'm not, I replied. I'm setting a boundary. My father's voice dropped. Dangerous. This family gave you everything. I met his eyes. Then it should survive one. No. My brother scoffed. You're selfish. That was when something shifted. Not anger. Not fear. Clarity. I'm done, I said. I'm not funding this. Or fixing your image. Or buying loyalty. My father leaned closer. Think very carefully. I am. I walked out of the study and back into the party. The music resumed awkwardly. People avoided my eyes. My brother followed me, whispering threats masked as concern. You'll regret this. I picked up my coat. No, I said quietly. You will. I didn't know it yet, but the refusal had already triggered something they couldn't stop. By the time I reached my car, my phone was vibrating. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? A calm, professional voice replied. This is regarding the trust. We need to speak immediately. I looked back at the glowing house, full of laughter that didn't know it was about to end. Okay, I said, I'm listening. The voice on the phone didn't rush. That alone told me this wasn't a casual call. My name is Daniel, he said. I represent the trustee assigned to your account. There's been activity we need to clarify. I leaned against my car, the night air suddenly too cold. What kind of activity? A request, he replied. Filed earlier today. Urgent, large. I closed my eyes for a moment. Of course it was. They already tried, I said. I refused. There was a pause. Papers shifting. Keyboard taps. Yes, Daniel said slowly. And that refusal triggered a safeguard. I straightened. What safeguard? The trust was structured with a conditional clause, he explained. Any attempt to redirect funds for non-approved assets initiates an automatic review. Especially when pressure or coercion is indicated. I felt my pulse thud once, hard. Coercion? Language matters, he said. And so does timing. A demand made during a family event, tied to reputation, recorded in written form, it raises flags. I thought of the folder. The contracts. The texts my brother had sent earlier in the week. The ones I'd ignored. You have those? I asked. Yes, Daniel said. They were attached. For the first time that night, I smiled. What happens now? I asked. The trustee has frozen discretionary access, he said. Effective immediately. I laughed. I couldn't help it. So they can't touch it. No, he confirmed. And there's more. I opened the car door but didn't get in. I'm listening. The review also examines prior withdrawals, Daniel continued, including those approved verbally. My stomach tightened again, but this time, not from fear. How far back? I asked. Several years. Images flashed through my mind. Expenses labeled temporary, transfers justified as family emergencies. Things I'd allowed because it was easier than fighting. Daniel's voice stayed calm, professional, precise. If misuse is confirmed, he said, the trustee is obligated to act. Act how? I asked. Recovery, reclassification, and legal notification. The house behind me erupted in cheers, someone starting another toast. My brother's birthday speech, probably. They don't know yet, I said. No, Daniel replied, but they will. I thanked him and hung up. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove until the noise in my head quieted. Somewhere between anger and relief, I realized something important. They had always believed the trust belonged to them. They'd never bothered to read the fine print. The next morning, my phone exploded. Missed calls, messages, voicemails stacking up faster than I could delete them. My mother first. Why is the account locked? My father next. Call me, now. Then my brother. What did you do? I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I opened my email. There it was. Subject: formal notice of review. Sender: trustee's office. I read every word carefully. Then I forwarded it to all three of them. No message, no explanation, just the truth. The responses came fast after that. Anger, denial, blame, and finally, panic. My brother showed up at my door that afternoon. No cake, no confidence, just sweat and desperation. You set me up, he said. I crossed my arms. You demanded a jet. You ruined everything, he snapped. No, I replied calmly. You assumed I'd stay quiet. He looked past me, into my apartment, like he expected answers to be hiding there. What happens now? He asked. I thought of Daniel's voice. The clause. The review. Now, I said, you wait. His phone buzzed in his hand. He looked down, and went pale. My brother stared at his phone like it had just betrayed him. His jaw tightened. His fingers hovered over the screen, scrolling, rereading, hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something less final. They can't do this, he said, more to himself than to me. I didn't answer. He looked up, eyes sharp with accusation. You knew this would happen. I knew what the trust was designed to do, I replied. That's not the same thing. He laughed once, hollow. You always do this. You hide behind rules. No, I said calmly. I respect them. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. The entitlement that usually wrapped around him like armor was gone. In its place was something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. By evening, my parents finally showed up. Not together. Not coordinated. My mother came first, eyes red, voice shaking with controlled outrage. She didn't sit. She paced. You embarrassed us, she said. In front of everyone. You tried to take money that wasn't yours, I replied. In front of everyone. My father arrived minutes later, quieter, heavier. He closed the door behind him like he was sealing something shut. The trustee called, he said. I nodded. They called me too. They're saying past withdrawals are being reviewed, he continued. Every transfer, every justification. I leaned back against the counter. That's how reviews work. My mother stopped pacing. We were just borrowing. No, I said. You were assuming. The room fell silent. For years, that silence would have terrified me. It used to mean punishment was coming. Guilt, pressure, emotional debt. Now it felt different. Now it felt earned. You could stop this, my father said finally. You could tell them it was a misunderstanding. I met his eyes. It wasn't. My mother's voice cracked. We're family. I answered without raising my voice. Family doesn't threaten. Family doesn't demand. Family doesn't treat one child like a wallet and the other like a project. She sat down then, slowly, like the strength had drained out of her legs. The trustee's final notice arrived a week later. The review concluded that multiple withdrawals over the years had been misclassified. Funds had been redirected under pressure, without proper authorization, and for assets explicitly excluded by the trust's purpose. The outcome was simple. The trust was restructured, access tightened, oversight increased, and restitution required, not from me, from them. My parents had to repay a portion of what they'd taken. Not all at once, but enough to sting. Enough to force accountability. Enough to end the illusion that the trust had ever been theirs to control. My brother didn't get the jet. He didn't even get the party he wanted. What he got instead was distance. From me. From the money. From the version of himself that believed entitlement was inheritance. The fallout wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Phone calls stopped. Messages slowed. Invitations came with caution instead of assumption. Weeks later, my brother sent a short text. "I didn't think you'd actually say no." I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied with the truth. "I didn't think you'd ever listen." Life didn't magically improve after that. But it stabilized. I stopped feeling watched, measured, evaluated for usefulness. I started making decisions without rehearsing explanations in my head. One evening, months later, I sat alone with a cup of coffee, rereading the trust documents for the first time in years. The clause was still there. The one that had changed everything. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't vindictive. It was protective. It existed for moments exactly like this, when love was confused with access, and boundaries were mistaken for betrayal. My parents tried to use my trust fund for my brother's birthday. One refusal changed everything, not because I fought, but because I finally stopped agreeing to be used.